basically it's like using the word health as if it were an imperative verb. Like you're yelling at somebody like, health, don't be sick. And so saying that anytime somebody sneezed in my grad program, we would just scream out, health! Funny, these little things that make you giggle for no reason because they're just childishly silly. And to tie it back into community, that's part of why I love the show so much.
Yeah, I was about to say, and I've already started recording, so I'm including this. I was about to say with this episode, I mean, it's literally just the magnitude effect. He just says, two words, one word twice, and that's really all you need. And everyone, including all the students at Greendale, are fixated on it. You know, it just seems to work for everyone. So, yeah. Well then, yeah, let's go. If everyone's ready, we can just go. We can hop right back into this. Yeah, everyone good to go?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Yes. Hello, human beings, and welcome to the Save Greendale Committee. It's been over a decade since Community premiered, so we're revisiting every episode to look at both the good and the bad as we attempt to save Greendale one episode at a time. I've had a lot more coffee since we started the last one, so I have a lot more energy.
I need to catch up. This is just my second cup. That said, it is good coffee. Coffee's nice. Let's have the coffee podcast.
Yeah. What's your go-to coffee?
I mean, so my mom actually
Brown, obviously.
Hot and Brown's coffee really wakes me up to the fact that this coffee sucks.
Morning Brown. But my mom actually got me like a subscription thing for like she's just sending like small samples of not like a few days worth of like really nice coffee.
Oh, that's nice.
And like I'm trying to sip it slowly so I can appreciate it, but also like I need caffeine so badly right now.
Yeah, I there's a coffee subscription box thing, like of course there is for everything now. But I can't remember the name of it, and I'll refuse to remember it until they sponsor this podcast. So there we go. Get you all a discount code one day.
That's how we're gonna get sponsors. We're gonna neg brands until they like accept us. We're just gonna passively aggressively tweet at Taco Bell. It's like, I wish your tacos were, like a little more free for us.
Or y'all can just go like super meta about it and like shame companies that aren't doing as well into coming back. Like, and this one's sponsored by Surge Soda.
Yeah.
Use it as a platform to bring things back, like Firefly.
We're gonna manifest Let's chips into reality. We're just gonna pull it from the TV, just the TV void, bring it into real life, and they're gonna be the best. Get your damn hands off my Let's.
I can't remember what episode it is, but there's a commentary on a Community episode where Donald Glover and the rest of the people on it are just going on and on about the Let's potato chip bag and how it looks like really bad in one scene and really good in another scene. And yeah, I always remember the It's Always Sunny Mac Day episode where they all get stoned at the planetarium and then they're just like they're all just eating a ton of Let's chips, and that was the first time I noticed the Let's brand in another show. And once you see it, then you start seeing it in like every sitcom of the 2010s. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's in The Office.
Oh, it still exists. You can go on their website. You have to order them in bulk, but yeah, like you can.
Wait, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
I thought it was like just the bag, and then they would fill it with actual chips.
No, like it's part of a whole prop food company that does, what is it, Heisler beer you see in everything. Like I noticed that was on New Girl, and then you see it everywhere. Like it's made specifically to mimic other brands and look without hitting that copyright law. And so yeah, you could theoretically go buy your own huge bag of, well, they're not, you can either do the huge bags, which are like $30, or like a huge thing of like the small bags that they have in all of the munchie machines.
I mean, I'm not opposed.
Yeah, it's really fucked up how I'm gonna buy those immediately after we're done here.
Once you said it was $30, I was like, that's not for some
the worst.
Yeah, I'm like, for some chips, that's too much. But for
it
like
used to be on Amazon. Now it's just their website. I think you'd actually have to pick up a phone and call. But okay, I'm a millennial and I still use my phone as a phone, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's a big barrier for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, honestly, the amount of spam calls that I get, I just assume everybody is a robot. Like I'll see like, oh, mom, it's probably a robot. Just if she's real, she'll text me. Like, I've been trying to. At one point, I had like a somewhat decent like segue into, oh, Joe Biden can put in an executive order to then transition into the actual episode. But that's what this is now. I was trying and then I lost it, and here we are now. Welcome to Introduction to Politics.
I just got a news update that Joe Biden put in an executive order to start the episode right now.
Oh, okay. Well, we better listen.
Well, that's just because we've been Biden time talking about potatoes.
Biden, folksy yet
progressive. I love that line. Oh, and I'm just okay. I feel like I'm going to make sure that I'm not completely stepping on anyone's toes. Yeah, okay. So the dean, I feel like I am going to start like, I don't know, if you watch the show a bunch and you're like binging Save Greendale Committee, take a shot every time I say that one of my cools is just the dean.
Yeah.
And so I went into being like, okay, like I can't be lame. Like I can't do that. I need to pick a specific point, but I'm just like, no. Like as soon as he walks in and everyone goes just like, oh, thank God. He goes, thank you. Like from then on, it's just anytime Jim Rash is on screen, just eating all the scenery as Jim Rash does.
The vice president of the United States is about to be there in 7 hours. They have to elect a president, and his first response is, what am I gonna wear?
Yeah.
Priorities, Dean, priorities.
But that's what I love about him is he's so set on making sure that Greendale has like every opportunity, looks the best it can, but he will do it even if he knows it's going to take, he's only got 7 hours and there's no chance in hell it goes well. He's like, no, we're going to do this. Like we've got 7 hours. There's plenty of time to elect a student government.
And clean the mold so that President Biden doesn't see it.
Yes, so we are talking about Intro to Political Science, which I have written down the title incorrectly in various ways across all of my notes for this episode. And it is written by Adam County, who also has worked on Silicon Valley, Mindy Project, a bunch of other things, and wrote quite a few community episodes. His first was Aerodynamics of Gender, the Abed RoboCop Mean Girls episode, and his next episode is another one of my favorites, Studies in Modern Movement, #Annie's Move. So he's behind only a couple episodes, but some of the better ones in my opinion. And this was directed by Jay Chandrasekhar, who is all over Community. I think after Tristram Shapiro, he's the second most recurring director. Oh, and the Russo brothers, of course, but I kind of just assume they're the main directors of almost every episode. But so this is, as we were saying, the big student government election episode. I sometimes refer to this as the debate episode, forgetting that there's an actual episode called Debate 109, because this is focused really entirely on the debating aspect of campaigning and elections.
I mean, I'm about to have to be quiet for the rest of the episode, but like one of my second cool is the like as I'm rewatching it, like I feel like again I've said this 1,000 times on the show, but like rewatching Community for Save Greendale Committee kind of makes me break it down in a different light and like just trying to draw anything from it. I feel like the ultimate commentary of like it's way harder than people think to like get people caring about politics and to get people engaged. And like, sure, you have people in the room. Like there were more than what? It was like 11 votes cast. There were more than 11 people in the room watching all of this go down. And like
there were more than 11 candidates. In the
room.
So they all should have at least voted for themselves.
Yeah. Like the way that they funnel people, like Garrett getting onto stage and just like, I just wanted to, and then like go for it. Why not? Like
I've got a whole list of Biden references throughout this episode, and that was definitely like one of my favorites, is just Garrett being like, I wanted ice cream, so I got in line. Like I mean, and like the first pictures you ever Google of President Biden that aren't like his headshot or any picture with him with ice cream. So like just like the little tiny nods to him throughout the whole episode are just amazing.
I like to think that that's how he ended up president, though, is that he just got in line for ice cream at like a Democratic convention and then was like, oh, right, yeah, I was the vice president. I guess I could do this.
Or like that's how he became like in his first position ever in government. Like, it's an accident. Now he's president. Like it's the American dream.
This was surprisingly easy for me. I wonder why. I'll never investigate that. So before we get too deep into all the political references and everything in this episode, Holly, you've been on this show before. We did not formally introduce you for this episode yet, so welcome back.
Thank you.
And so you've been on the show before, but just to refresh people, because we're talking about this very specific episode as to why we had you on, if you want to kind of remind the audience on what your credentials in regards to political theory and everything is, and then we can hop into talking about it in regards to the episode.
Absolutely. So I have a background in political science and religion. In a former life, I used to teach at Roanoke College and Virginia Tech. I'm currently adjuncting, and political theory is really my wheelhouse. So originally, way back when, as a really uber fangirl, as you guys might remember from my last episode, I reached out to Ed about the Model UN episode. And this is the episode that really, for me, launches us into Model UN, because it's first time you see Annie in this hyper competitive political sort of role. So for me, having taught intro to political science multiple times and being involved with student government and advising students for that, like, I can genuinely say that while this episode kind of hyperbolizes it in a lot of ways, the core of it is very much how college level student government goes. So I was so excited when you asked me to do this one, because it's just like, it's why I love community so much as a college professor, that, you know, it does hyperbolize every part of it. But as a kid that grew up on community college campuses when my dad was going and has been at so many different colleges, it doesn't overdo it. It really is real. So yeah, that's me.
So how many South Parks are running colleges around the country?
Probably 27 or so. I had to guess.
All right.
I've definitely voted for South Park, and like at the time when I first saw this, I probably voted for South Park for like the high school class president or whatever that I did at the time, that I was near me at the time. So I don't know. It definitely influenced my political decision making one way or another. Awesome. So it was funny because for me, watching this episode again this time, I was trying to like look for the political like ideologies that are being talked about, like the philosophies or whatever. But I'm not that I saw nothing, but especially in the way it concludes with Jeff and Annie, I sort of it was hard for me to see it as not just mostly just about their characters, like, and kind of just using the political discussion as a backdrop to just represent their dynamics. So I want to get your perspective, like what do you think are some of the ideas that are supposed to be represented in this conflict between Jeff and Annie, and or any of the other people running, like what is the like political messaging happening in this episode? What point of view are we getting here?
That's not the way I analyzed the episode at all.
Okay.
So,
No, that's all good.
Because for me, I had seen the other side of the politics, which is like these cults of personality that kind of happen around celebrity candidates. And I don't mean in the former president's sense of celebrity, but like your rock stars like Obama and, you know, Mayor Pete, these just like these iconic people in like modern politics. And so I guess, I mean, we get pieces of policy throughout, like Annie does her whole environmentalist policy, and apparently Jeff just really likes beer like Brett Kavanaugh, like that's his platform. So I don't know that I can answer your question effectively, because honestly, I don't think that there was really any politics, any substance to the politics of this episode, which is exactly what it was trying to, I think, comment on at the time. Just the hilarious weirdness that had been coming off of the Bush administration into the Obama administration, and then you get Joe Biden out of that, who became one of these kind of celebrity candidates, like, or Uncle Joe, Diamond Joe, all that cult around him.
Just the constant pictures of walking and everyone being like, yes.
Oh my God, he takes trains. Yeah. Well, I think you actually very effectively answered my question, because that's sort of what I was assuming. Is I was like, unless I'm missing something here, it feels like it's very kind of on the nose. I mean, Jeff even says like it's, politics is just about parlor tricks and ego and everything. And he kind of proves that through the episode. And Annie sort of proves his point by flipping it on him with the whole real world thing, which is actually one of my cools. Just that the amount of times I've just been like cleaning dishes and started singing like, you gotta have Jeffrey.
It's like Weird Al levels of iconic.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear that version in my head when the first notes of the original start, and then I get to when it's George Michael, and then I feel guilty about feeling upset that it's George Michael. May he rest in peace.
I've still never heard the original, so
What?
I mean at this point,
I am so old. I can't believe you said that.
I used to listen to Sinatra. It doesn't. The whole, like I have access to all music ever. Like,
whereas I remember watching it on MTV. So there's that. Back when MTV showed music videos.
It's more just my weird, like, I don't know. I'm really into Hall & Oates, but like I don't.
Nice.
To the one singer Hall & Oates. It's Always Sunny reference. I thought it was a Community reference. No, Hall & Oates, one person.
Speaking of music references, one of my favorite Community music references is in this episode, and it's just 5 words on Pierce's bio. Like in his bio as a politician or as a candidate, it's followed BNL for the summer.
Yeah.
It's 2 episodes after the BNL fight that they have.
Yeah.
And it definitely says specifically BNL, not Bare Naked Ladies. So like Pierce is reasserting that at this point, that this is correct.
Yeah, and this is one of the many, I feel like most of Community's best episodes have moments like this where you can just like pause and read, and that's all over those Greendale campus television shots here. Like there's reference to Professor Slater going missing. I think there's reference to John Oliver not being there as well. Duncan.
Oh, it's John Oliver quits drinking again.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they tease up the paintball finale as well, like something like Dean announces theme for like end of the year picnic or something like that. So there's so much there, and and all the political candidate breakdowns as well.
And there's foreshadowing too, like possibility of an air vent monster, like we're getting Annie's boobs being in the vents. And that whole thing with Slater's still missing. I love that later we get the same ticker with LeVar Burton and non-celebrity companion captured by pirates. Like Troy's talking, and Slater's there, and then Troy's in the ticker himself later. And it's just such great bookending for that.
Yeah, there's so much stuff like that pays off, or like they don't just like use as, like even with Leonard changing his last name, like in the Pillows and Blankets documentary later on when you get his lower third, it's still Leonard Rodriguez. Like he didn't only pick up the name just to court the Hispanic vote in this episode. Like he keeps it, and that's like his thing going forward.
I believe you meant Leonard Bucket of Guts from Pillows and Blankets, but like I love that it's such a great reminder that Leonard is such a nothing to them that we actually don't know Leonard's last name up until that point, and we never know what his actual last name is. So that's just the way it is, I guess, for Leonard, bless his heart.
Oh yeah, I mean, like even Magnitude in this episode, like we never unless they maybe say it in the one episode where he has to like change his catchphrase, but I don't think we ever get his like real name. It might be referenced at one point, but yeah. So everyone's got their aliases, and it's only Starburns who's insisting that everyone remembers his name that we get.
And regarding names, can we just talk about the fact that Troy manages to get yet another butt reference into this episode with his name? Like just having that moment. What was it? It's
Buttsuit Barnes.
Buttsuit Barnes, and then we get Butts Carlton later on in the comparative polygraphy episode where he's just like, Butts Carlton. I mean, what is it? No, Troy Barnes. I meant Butts Carlton. Yes, that's actually what he meant to say. Like, every time he gets a pseudonym, it feels like he has to get butts in it. It's Troy, so of course he does.
And just Abed's approval of both times, like during the. He did mean to say Butts Carlton. Just Abed, nice. Yeah. Nice.
And just Troy trying to be professional on that, but just he's clearly never watched the news in any real way in his life. And so like his commentary starts with, what's up with politics?
That reminds me of one of my favorite Dean bits in this episode as well, which is just, if elected, what would you do? And he's so, I mean, we already mentioned just Bo's cool of just Dean. Like I can echo that, because the like the long pan, like a zooming like dolly shot at the beginning when he's wearing the Uncle Sam outfit, and just like the more serious his speech gets and the further back the more we see the costume. So there's just like this constant like pulling away of like what you're seeing and what you're hearing. That's
people
so
have
great.
fought and died. Just holding the mic so close, and then the lunge with just the thigh just out, just this way.
Line up by the ice cream machine. It's so good, and just and his like with the applause-o-meter.
Well, of course, with that. Oh, Britta's in it kind of moment where he's like, it's good to know there's a floor on this thing.
Yeah, and just the way he stands there doing this.
Yeah.
Like, he really had to go all the way out with that.
I know that they, like, it was the back of Joe Biden's head, whatever. Just any kind of Jim Rash shaking Joe Biden's hand and then melting in the same way that like he does with Joel McHale. Like that would have been great. Like, give him the weird Leslie Knope connection of having a thing for Joe Biden.
I have a couple Biden things that I noticed in the episode, including what might be a story that you would be on no other podcast, because I happened to see it on Roanoke local news when I used to live down there.
Exclusive.
I love Pierce's hot mic moment where like he's clearly only running to upset Vicky, but like he should have had his mic cut, but that's when he like kind of leans over and he's just like, I'm gonna eat your brains. And like Biden was kind of the vice president that had hot mic moments. Like, I mean, there's that classic picture of him, well, the video of him and Obama right after the Affordable Care Act passed, when they were out doing like a big presser about it and forgetting the mic was on, he literally leans over to President Obama, and given I am quoting a sitting president, I feel no problems cussing at this point. He just leans over to Obama and goes, this is a big fucking deal. All of America in the world heard it. And he did it before, like when, okay, here's this scoop. When I lived in Roanoke, it was during the second election cycle in 2012. And President Biden was going around and visiting different field offices for, the election. And he gets to the Roanoke area and there's a chain of pizza places there called Benny Marzano's. It's just like pizza slices the size of 2 plates, like 2 paper plates when you get it out, like the huge ones. And you can order a whole pie. And to give you a sense of how big these pies are, I had a friend with a Honda CRV and you still had to put the pizza box at like a 5-degree angle in the back.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so here's your visual. So President Biden shows up with his people at Benny's and says, I want to order 10 pizzas to take out to the field officers because they need to eat. And they're like, sir, are you sure you want 10 of our pizzas? And they're like, yeah. He's like, what, I mean, this is the story that like my political friends were kind of filling me in on, but like they interviewed him about it later because like they brought the 10 pizzas out on tape, like on film, and it's like literally like a because it's just so heavy. And then he looks without even blinking and he goes, this is the biggest fucking pizzas I've ever seen. On live news without a 5-second delay. And I was just like, so, I mean, it's not as ugly as Pierce, but like you have these moments in political campaigns where like somebody says something to another candidate and you think it's gonna be just between the two of you. And then it's just like, oh, but it's Pierce, so he does not give a shit. Like he has 0 shits that everybody heard. And that's again kind of a Biden thing. Like he's real, he's honest, he's just a lot nicer.
I mean, the tap of the mic and lean in to me was like him making sure my mic is hot. Okay.
Yeah, but it is still that hot mic moment, right? It's just Pierce being like, I don't care, we're doing this.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting watching both Pierce and obviously what Jeff's doing the whole episode in the context now, because like at the time it was the Obama era and like, Biden going off mic like that was maybe like the extent of it, but and with Obama it was much more like everyone expected he was very professional and very presidential, and stuff has happened since then. And I think a Pierce-like candidate, and certainly a Jeff-like candidate, is very like much more believable and much more direct a one-to-one comparison than I think was on people's minds at the time too. So like, you know, Pierce literally does a Trump impression in the first season, so it's not like it's a unapt comparison. So just like some of the things he does in this episode are just so hilariously awful and so uncomfortably believable, I think, in a way now.
I mean, and now that you like put it in the context of pairing Jeff and Pierce, I kind of just realized that like both of them only joined the race to piss off another person.
To piss off another woman.
Yeah.
To piss off another woman. And I think that's really important because of all the narrative about, you know, Secretary Clinton, you know, even like the first time she ran, the Trump time she ran, like, you know, just the ways that certain candidates feel the need to be ugly to women to show their dominance. Like, I don't think Jeff's doing it to dominate Annie in a particular way, but really to like take her down a few pegs. But that's not his role and that's not his job. And he finally does figure that out. But it really does mirror a lot of the news narrative around male versus female candidates that unfortunately is more true often than not than it should be.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to his relationship with Annie overall, and at this point in the season, where in season 1, you know, they get kind of like flirty, but there's like the age gap is much more emphasized because she's literally 18 and like just out of high school. And it's not really until the end of the season where they have the big kiss that it starts to feel much more like romantic. So now in this season, there's all this tension because Jeff is constantly like trying to fight against his like impulses and his feelings when it comes to Annie. And in this episode, she's, you know, I mean, even he tries to like take her down her peg at the end by saying like, oh, I couldn't let an idealistic kid like do whatever. But I think what's really happening is that, you know, he's just being threatened by her because she's a woman now. She's maturing. She's so much more capable than she was when they met. And especially in regards to him, like she wins the debate by his own rules, you know, like he makes it a battle and she ends up winning. And like, he can't really cope until, you know, his kind of resolution. And even then he doesn't really acknowledge, I think, what's really going on in his resolution, you know, like they reach, they make amends, but you know, there's still some lingering feelings there.
It feels that the show does a good job of making sure that you know that Jeff is not actually a smart person. Like Jeff is only in control because he puts himself in these situations where he's in control. And like sure, he was a lawyer back in his like, you know, his previous life, but like that was based off of a lie because he just, you know, and then after a while got exposed from it. But like Annie is just smart. Hard
on that too. He's like, I used to be a lawyer. Don't try to fool a lawyer or whatever it is. Yeah. She's like, well, when I see one, I'll let him know or something. Yeah. Like, I realized, sorry, please. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, Jeff
I was just gonna say that's just one of my favorite jabs in the in the show.
But as we're talking about this, I just kind of pieced together like every episode that involves debate or politics puts Jeff and Annie in the same position. We have it in Debate 101. She uses the kiss to make the point, and it causes that tension. And this one, you know, there's definite tension between the two of them. And then we get to the UN episode where it gets really gross too. And it's interesting. Annie has her moments of really starting to be an adult. He squashes it every time. And it's just another reason why I get so skeeved out by their relationship in like any way.
I mean, so I feel like Jeff learns a lot from Annie over the course of the series, but does Annie learn anything from Jeff? Like initially I was thinking, oh, maybe she learns like, you know, she had to play dirty to win the election, but she didn't win the election. She dropped out because she felt bad and then ultimately said that was a bad move. Like, does Jeff have anything to provide in this? Like whether or not, I personally am not, like I ship Jeff and Britta, but that's whatever. Again, that's just without thought. Like I don't think about it. It's the Shirley line. Two cute white people going to school together. It just makes sense, or it just feels right. Like whatever. I was just like, yeah, sure, fuck it. I don't really care. But like I feel like since they forced the Jeff and Annie relationship so much, like if you're gonna make me think about it, now that I'm thinking about it, does Jeff actually have anything to offer?
Yes. Only because of the finale, like the series finale. Because she has that moment where she's just like, I'm 25, you know, I'm going to kiss you and it's not going to mean anything. Like she finally figures out that, you know, these idealistic romantic attachments aren't a real relationship. And so I think without that crush on Jeff, that was luckily, you know, a little gross at times, but like he never actively intentionally hurt her or any of that stuff. Like she was in a safe space to learn, I don't need those kind of guys in my life and I can be an adult and confident in myself. And that's the only thing I can think of, but that's my answer. If that was actually a question. No. I don't think it was.
Yeah. That perfectly answers my question.
Cool. That's all I got.
I think they're really I think Annie really becomes the equal to Jeff that Britta's set up to be in the first season. And I think it's really just Jeff coping for like 4 or 5 seasons until the finale. You know, like Annie like has her like lovesick puppy dog moments at the beginning of season 2, but from there she more just gets frustrated that he's kind of leading her on at various points. Like, but yeah, I don't think. I mean, thank God they wrote Jeff to like at least be somewhat resistant to it for a while, because it could have been much more damaging on Annie if they had like made this season about them actually pursuing a relationship. Like, I think by holding off on it, like you said, it's like by the time they get to the finale, like Annie is an adult and she has had experiences and she can make those decisions for herself. And like, you know, that way Jeff no longer feels like he does or doesn't have the power, or this weird like dynamic is a little less weird by that point. But they had to, if they had done it any earlier, it would have been already made the skeeviness harder to ignore. I think for the people who do ship the two of them together. All right.
I mean, speaking of relationships, I guess my third cool. Yeah. Because now I'm done with my cools after this. I really. You know, they don't really do anything with it after this episode, but I really liked the little relationship that Abed had with what was her name, agent, the Secret Service agent. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Eliza Coupe, I think, is the actress from Happy Endings and Scrubs and some other stuff.
I don't know. Like I vibed with the conversation that they had, and I liked the idea of like the little date where she's watching the movie from her car. And then he's just like, honk twice if you want to do this again, and honk twice. All right, cool. See it. Like, it felt like it was something that he was comfortable with. And like, obviously, we get Brie Larson later on, so I'm not going to complain. But like, I don't know. It was like a very throwaway side story. I liked it.
I really like with Abed's relationships how he's never like even though people assume he's like bad romantically, like he's the one who's kind of like he's romancing her in this episode, you know, like she's the one who's like kind of like has to keep her distance, and Abed's like creating this scenario for her, and it's like really sweet when you look at it that way, you know. Like,
did you know that you can make bombs with or napalm with fertilizer and whatever? Like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Abed said this early on, though, like no one believes him, but I mean, you know, the truth is a lot of girls like me, you know, and I got this thing falling out of my butt, you know, like Abed knows who
my
he
aloofness
is in a
unconsciously reminds them of their fathers.
Yes.
Just so aware of it.
Yeah, so I mean, of course he's kind of, I think, in this dominant role too, and I love that, you know, she's so straight-laced and like by the book and all that stuff, but I love that he's able to kind of give her that moment to not be at work while still being at work, you know, to just like loosen up. And I'm disappointed that unlike Brie Larson, she doesn't come back, you know, like they set it up so well. And I don't know, maybe she got happy endings right around that time and she couldn't come back for the day or whatever, but I would have loved to, even if it was just like a random season 5 thing where you see the band in the back and her, like, you know, just like a very community moment, like that was always a disappointing thing for me that never paid off better.
It would have been nice if it was kind of like the background pregnancy arc where like we just get like shots of her kind of like around the campus in various episodes where you just realize like, oh, I guess they're on a date right now. Like they're doing
and Troy even acknowledges this too, right? Like one of my favorite lines from Troy in the episode is when he's just like, do you constantly have your own side adventures? Like,
Yeah.
and that look of utter FOMO on his face too. Like he is just so destroyed to know that
too.
I've got this side thing going on. And it's the pregnancy arc. You know, there's so many of these little moments that Abed has that nobody really acknowledges beyond Troy.
Yeah, that line from Troy was one of my cools, just because of the pain he has, and it reminds me of, I think it's season 4 when Brie Larson's introduced and Abed's doing the double date thing with the dates that Annie and Shirley got him, and Troy's like trying to like get him involved in like planning the dance with Britta, but he's just like basically jealously watching from afar as Abed's having his own like tropey sitcom-y adventure that he's not a part of at all.
Like Troy eating the massive cookie because he's like eating his feelings
about not being included by Abed. Yeah, it's like I think people forget that Troy and Abed don't, like, for as tied together as the characters are, they don't have a lot of episodes where they're on the same plot line. Like usually, like in this episode, they come together to do the GCTV stuff, but Abed's plot line is completely on the side. And you know, even Troy, he doesn't have a plot line, but like he has bits that are completely separate from Abed, like, you know, asking for his freshly squeezed juice. He's like,
help me God, Maurice.
Yeah.
of characters that don't have their own story. Where the hell is Chang in this episode?
Yeah.
This is the first time I ever realized Chang is not in this episode. And it's disappointing because I could see him either heckling from the audience during the debates or running just to like piss off John Oliver, had John Oliver actually still been there. Like there's so many ways that they could have deployed Chang in that episode to make it great. Or he's the person that the Secret Service is actually investigating on campus because he's crazy.
Oh, that would have been
like,
a great...
There's so many ways and it's just like, why? Like I hate when I have an idea that I'm like, this actually would have been good for the show and I'm disappointed in you writers, you know?
Yeah, this whole setup of like the Secret Service investigating Greendale could have had a completely different plot line made out of it without like, even with like just having different people run for the government or student government, or just like, having it be a whole like investigation on Chang. Like that's a whole episode in and of itself.
Can we talk about Vicky?
Yeah, I was just about to say that is another one of my cools is this is her first appearance. And to the point of not having Chang or John Oliver, I love that in lieu of not having some of those characters, they use this episode to highlight the even further in the background characters like Garrett and Magnitude and Leonard and everything. And of course, Vicky, who has got a yellow shirt, hat, girl. So
it literally feels like he's reading the character description.
Exactly.
Right? Like as if it's dialogue.
And
Kevin Sorbo clip from what is it? Hercules, where like he just screams like, is it Hercules? It's the one that wasn't Xena. I watch Xena a lot more. And he just screams like disappointed. And it's the urban legend is because it was in the script as stage direction, like say this in a disappointed manner, and he just line. And it's the only line from that show that anybody quotes now.
That's great.
Yes.
That's amazing. But yeah, I totally feel that Vicky's probably entire character description was that, and that's how they went off of the casting. And Bo and I got a chance to talk to Daniel Kaplowitz, who played her in a Zoom call with some of the other podcasters a few days ago, which is being edited and will probably come out before this episode. I don't know. When we have it, we're going to post this, at least a part of it on our feed so you guys can check it out. But she was talking about how her whole, like when she was brought on for this episode, obviously she's terrified because she has to work with Chevy Chase on her first appearance. And, you know, she's a small role. So if you're a background or smaller supporting actor, you can't screw anything up because you're not, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you're not important and they won't ask you back. You know, you're not Donald Glover who's allowed to ad lib, you know, all the time, you know, like you've got to do your job because you want to come back. And thankfully they did bring her back. And I love that this episode we get, you know, we don't get much from her, which is kind of the point, but we do find out that she will go as far as jamming a pencil in Pierce's face. So there's an edge to Vicky that we get to see a little bit more of in later episodes on screen, but they do a good job of giving us a character that we really want to see come back because there's clearly a lot more to her.
nobody gets Pierce like that. Like nobody gets the upper hand with him in that way. And I love that they just drop us into this feud as if we already know what's going on. Like seeing this escalate for seasons. It's just an understood part of the universe. And it continues. Like there's the Halloween episode from like season 4 where they're all going to Vicky's party behind Pierce's back because they can't be in the same room together. Like it's and just like him, but then he stands up for her in a weird way in the paintball episode where she's dancing. Is it paintball?
Yeah, she's a dance major, Jeff. If you ever stop to get to know her, you know that.
Like apparently there's at least a period where they had like a resolution and then it just escalates in season 4 again, but we never see it. It's one of my favorite pairings that you don't actually get, if that makes sense. Like,
and it started because of a pencil. And that to me is the most Pierce, like I am going to dedicate the rest of my day to ruining yours over a pencil.
And
like,
then she pierces him with a pencil.
Oh my God. Wow. I never thought of that, but she really got him.
It just came to me. And it's a Dixon Ticonderoga, which is the best of all, sharpenable pencils. So like high production value here.
that one like props manager was just like, no, listen, you got to trust me on this. We have to get the specific one or people are going to call bullshit on the show. Just trust me on this.
Yes.
Don't ask me how I know, but this is the best pencil to go through someone's face.
I was in college for a really long time. It definitely is the best one for taking notes. And, it's wood. You can like sharpen it with a knife and get it really. I'm team Vicky on this one. She picked the right pencil. 100%.
Nice. Yeah.
She was dressed like a pencil.
Oh my God.
So many layers.
And it's such a wonderful thing that they continue doing on the show. Like they scream at him, Pierce, go to the health center. And then later in season 6, we get
Chang.
We get Chang with this bit. Go to the nurse. Like,
I'm trying.
This running joke if people get injured and don't go to the doctor properly. And yet we then get the Patton Oswalt scenes.
Yeah.
Like, making up reasons to go to the doctor.
I'm kind of the Hawkeye around here. It's never mind.
Okay, you bring up Hawkeye, which is 70s, and MASH, which is my other amazing 70s reference in this episode. Just like Jeff is making all these horrible statements, and he's like, for my closing statement, I'm thinking about smashing a watermelon. And I was just like, who on that writing staff is making a Gallagher reference out of nowhere? Like, I mean, like prop humor at its best / worst, right? Like, it's so silly. And then for Jeff to like pull that, Annie, there's no way Annie knows that reference. Like, there's no way. She just thinks like Jeff is being disgusting or gross or stupid again. And I'm just sitting here like, I know exactly what visual, because I grew up on way too much of that in reruns on Comedy Central as a kid. So like Jeff, another moment where Jeff points out how old he is next to Annie too, right? Like it's just another sign that they don't speak the same language at the end of the day. Anyways.
And the whole
while we're on the
world.
subject to Jeff, my last cool is about him, and it's just the flair that he brings to his campaign is like it's like he is the perfect Greendale candidate. Like it's so tailored specifically to Greendale. Like his emphasis on like like his whole Maria, who's a beautiful Latina, born in Nicaragua, who works in the cafeteria. Like he's just the weird obsession with like race and background that everyone at Greendale has. Like he's hit. It's like all these like obviously like political cliches that he's hitting, but it's so perfect for Greendale that like it's the dean's whole attitude of like he just cares so much about those appearances, and he's also just like not making any references that are gonna like go over any of the Greendale students' head. Like he's just the perfect like he is playing them perfectly, and it kind of proves his point when at the end it's just this debate between Leonard and Magnitude going back and forth making noises.
I mean, there's a Family Guy, not that this is a Family Guy podcast, but there's a Family Guy bit where it's like Lois is running for office or whatever. Yeah. Welcome, Seth MacFarlane. He just joins the Zoom. But there's just a scene where Lois is just like debating, and it's literally just her going 9/11, and then everyone stands up and cheers.
Yeah.
And like just keeps saying it. It's like 9/11.
Yeah.
Just like that. Like you can just as long as people can recognize what you're saying, like, not to get like actually political, but I feel like that's why Bernie Sanders kind of like fell off, or not fell, just I'm a Bernie head, but I feel like his style of, I'm going to say the same stuff I've been saying for decades. I'm not going to change the verbiage. I'm going to yell it at you because I'm right. And if people just like, if they don't walk into a Bernie talk already on Bernie's side, I feel like it's hard to like, oh, I don't immediately recognize or grasp what you're saying. So it's not like opposition, it's just not attachment. And I feel like that's kind of what Jeff was kind of playing with, like, hey, as long as I can get the most people's like just to look up, like I'll win this game. And I feel, and he's looking at it as a game and not like a way to better Greendale, just a way to win and a way to be competitive and a way to manipulate, as Jeff does.
Yeah, and it's working too. Like, I mean, Annie, like the way he's able to turn it on Annie with the black mold thing, where it's like, are you saying Greendale is dirty? Like, it's so like she's the Bernie in the situation where she's making a valid point in criticism, but saying like, I have a plan to fix this.
Yeah.
Or you know, which turns out to not be true, but still, you know, she wants people to at least believe she's going to fix the black mold issue. But it's like, Jeff's like, no, like people don't want to know what's wrong with their school. They want to I'm going to tell you what's great about it. You know, like he's able to just rhetorically flip it on her when she's like making a good point that he's not even debating the point, you know, like he's not saying black mold is good. He's just saying how dare you say dirty Greendale is dirty, you know?
I mean, if you take Jeff's speech if you take out the Greendale references and make it an America references, it's basically a George W. Bush speech, like verbatim, like the 9/11 reference, the folksy beer reference, like they make fun of Biden being the folksy candidate, but that was George W. Bush. He was the one that spoke plainly and all that stuff. And then you get on the other side, Annie being more adult and basically giving us a George Herbert Walker Bush speech instead of read my lips, no new taxes. It's read my lips, you know. Come on.
No matter what we're told,
I'm losing it, you know. And it's, you know, they're things that the target audience when Community first aired, I think, was like 20s and 30s or years old, and then the younger people started picking up on it too, which was great. So this was, I mean, I was watching these episodes and, like, you know, when they first started, Bush hadn't been gone that long. You know, Herbert Walker Bush, I remember seeing the debates with Clinton and Perot as a kid. So like all the stuff was there and we were just like dying watching it live because it's like, okay, there's that, and there's Howard Dean over here. Like you could just point to which politicians they were cribbing from. With the exception of Starburns, who we have not talked about yet.
I mean, honestly,
speech, I fear a political career will shine a negative light on my drug dealing.
I honestly thought that's what Trump was doing before. I thought he was just, I'm doing this for all the side hustles. I'm trying to make whatever connections. And then once it becomes not advantageous for my bottom line, I'm dropping. And obviously that didn't happen. Like I remember.
So you're saying that Starburns is the Trump of the Greendale student government race?
No, Starburns should have been the Trump in our real lives because then we wouldn't have had all the last 4 years of bullshit. Like if yeah, if just at one point
Jeff
he just said
the Trump.
Yeah.
I think because Jeff's the one being like, are you saying the school's dirty? And like that same way of like, are you saying America's not already great? Like, I mean, it's a similar shtick in the narrative. But I agree. I wish Starburns had been Trump because if nothing else, we would have gotten the cat car by now. And we really need the cat car.
This is true. This is true.
Well, it's funny because I'm realizing that like Jeff's whole positive like campaigning where he's only saying good stuff is, you know, reference is the manifestation of his like very pessimistic view on politics, whereas Annie's much more like, no, we can actually fix things. So she comes off more negative, but in reality it's because she's optimistic. So it's like interesting to see how like the ideologies manifest when you're trying to like basically convince people to side with you, you know, like that the person who's completely defeatist about politics altogether is the one who's able to like wield this like positive energy from the audience.
I mean, I feel like it's because with Annie's, like, she's optimistic because she sees problems that can be fixed. There's still action that is required on behalf of the voting populace. So like, like, you know, she gets elected that means that like, oh shit, we have to do things now. Like we have to make the school a better place, and that's like our job now. But Jeff is saying that we're already good, which means that I can just sit here and vibe. I feel like the idea of just like, hey, we're all good, put me at the top, and we're just gonna stay good. Like I feel like that is an entire, like, if you're being told, hey, your life's not gonna get any worse, like that is a good thing to hear. But hearing like, hey, we're gonna roll up our sleeves and we're gonna get the job done to get this, like, I don't want to work. Like what? I feel like that's kind of the vibe that the Greendale audience was giving back to the candidates.
But Annie's moment of failure is always when she lets her ego come through. Like we know Annie has this chip on her shoulder about not finishing college the way she wanted to and not going to a 4-year college, and she wants to go to city college at certain points because she feels like it's the better school, to the point where like her first promise is, I promise to make Greendale the signature community college of the entire western 3/4 of the Greendale area, which indicates to you that you know city college is over on that other side. Like, you know, she's not even willing to try to make Greendale as good as it can be. And then she just kind of starts to melt down from that into, I guess, full Annie mode that we really then see in that Model UN episode, when we get that wonderful scene of her on the table just screaming, I want to win! Like that's, you know, that part of Annie to prove herself worthy when she's already worthy, you know, like she's already proven that she belongs in a student government space, in being one of the smart kids and being involved. And it's another one of those story arcs that takes forever to resolve. And honestly, the last season, when she's confident she's getting the internship, she's not questioning if she's good enough for it. You know, she's there, but it takes a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're still just at this point where Jeff can so easily undercut her you know, her motivation, and it's funny because he's just clearly threatened by the idea of anyone caring about anything. Like that's just such a sticking point for him at this point in the show, where like, you know, a few episodes ago when they argue over BNL, you know, like even Duncan points out to him like, look, you clearly care about these people, and like you can keep denying it if you want, but you know, you could also just like admit you enjoy it. And he kind of starts to go that way in that episode by the end, but he's still so easily able to slip back into his old self by the slightest, you know, transgression. And I do like that they show him playing billiards in his cool leather jacket outfit at the beginning of the episode, because it perfectly obviously reminds us of the billiards episode, where, you know, it's all about how cool he looks. He only cares about appearances, and we're getting him in his cool pool look, playing pool, being good at it, being like, you know, trying to impress all these other random students who we don't know the names of around him. And, you know, it gives him that, it sets him up as that person that he is, that too cool for school guy that is now just suddenly pissed off at the idea that Annie would just ask him for his help. Like that's the extent of it, is just like hang some flyers, and he's like, what are you asking of me?
I mean,
I feel
like he has a line where it says, like, I always go the extra mile to not do work or something like that.
Yeah.
The position where he taped the posters was very like he needed a ladder or something. So like, you still used effort to be a dick. Like, why would just, I don't know, just like leave him somewhere else. Just say no when she asks you. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like even just running the whole campaign just to piss her off,
yeah,
is doing too much.
I mean, this is from day one with Jeff. I mean, think of the hoops he goes through to not get all of the answers to all the tests from Duncan in the first episode. Like, you know, everything he does is about not doing his work. And as a college professor, that is true. Honestly, nothing breaks my heart more than when a student like cheats, and it's so apparent in a paper that they spent hours cheating, like hours doing that. And you're just like, you could have gotten the paper written and it would have been maybe a C+, but it wouldn't have been an F, you know? Like it's unfortunate that like, but it is a thing, you know? I think Jeff is incredibly anxious when he gets there because he didn't do the degree properly the first time. He didn't do this right. He wasn't a good student. He knows he's a fraud. And that's the exact situation that often puts students in these situations where they make poor decisions. You know, they don't think they can do it, so they cheat, and then they destroy themselves. And luckily, Jeff begins to figure that out. I mean, we know he ends his degree with like, he ends up getting a degree in education, and you're just like, wait, what? Like, it's not the answer. Like, you know, he acts like that's the easy degree. And as we all know, teachers are rock stars, and it's not an easy degree, but it's his persona, it's his vibe, man.
It is often the self that seeks to be destroyed. Also, just
quiet now.
on the subject of college assignments, I'm not gonna lie, my brain immediately started going to, shit, do I have anything due on Monday? Like, I just flashbacks to being in college. Just, oh no, do I have a group project? Do I have to meet with someone in the pub oh god.
You're good, you're safe. I've had a reoccurring nightmare since graduation of waking up and forgetting I had taken an entire class, and like I keep having the same dream of just not having attended in class for an entire semester but still being on the list and never withdrawing, so I have to like make sure I don't fail like a day before graduation. And I don't know when that dream is going to go away, but it's been like almost 2 years now. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's been almost 2 years now, and yeah, well, it's still there, so.
Are there any lingering cools before we wrap it out? I got all mine done really early, and I apologize for that.
No. I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the ass crack bandit.
Yeah, first mention.
True.
First mention.
It's the thing that makes me believe that it's Annie, because Annie says we're going to solve the mystery. I mean, she's already solved it. She knows it's her. You know, she's already. For me, it's the piece. But I would, you know, when we get to that point, hopefully maybe I can talk about it with you guys and we can hear all the other theories on that one. But it's, again, another one of those things like Vicky, where it's just assumed the audience knows about it already. And they never have to pick it up again. And I love that they did.
Yeah, this is just an episode, again, with the ticker during the TV sections. Like, this is an episode that just rewards the diehard fans more than many others. There's so much you can pick up on going back to it.
Did you pick up on the whiteboard as well?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I love that they got a dad joke on the whiteboard, like the first scene. Like, for those of you who may not have zoomed in, it's worth it because it's literally just, if the opposite of a pro is a con, does that mean the opposite of progress is Congress? Like, I mean, just like the most basic politics joke, right? But they did it. They made a point to do it, and I giggle every single time.
I guess my headcanon for that specifically is that like the intro to political science professor, like, thought about this for hours. I was like, what's going to be my magnum opus for this debate? And then just writes that down. Like, I did it. I just changed lives, and then walks away.
I don't get the impression that Greendale has.
I'm in this story, professor. And I don't like it.
No, you would not teach at Greendale. You would not. They wouldn't be able to afford you. It's.
Yeah, you have a degree.
Oh.
You would be able to smell that smell they're smelling, and not be able to deal with it.
The black mold smell.
Yeah, the black mold.
I feel like before we wrap up, we should at least shout out Britta and her political machinations in this episode.
She felt that. Like, she was like, come on.
Let me not be governed.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I
don't care.
I love her running up and cutting them and being like, I'm sorry, I got the heat. Like, just.
What happened before that? Like, what got her to that point?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think this is like the closest we've seen at this point in the show to like what she was actually like as like an anarchist and protester and everything. Because like there's obviously references to it, but in a lot of season one, she's trying to be like cool and mellow and everything. But like we're starting to get the manic Britta that of course we get mostly exclusively in the later seasons. And there's I think season 4 in the Heroic Origins episodes where we see her with her anarchist group, and like that feels like the Britta that we got a little taste of here.
But with the concern that Britta had in Heroic Origins, which is, what is an anarchist without her collective? Like, on stage screaming about anarchy, but there's no one there to support her.
Yeah, shouting that
eat a burger and now they don't feel cold anymore.
Yeah, shouting that humankind need not be governed, and then being disappointed that no one agrees, no one in the collective agrees with her, and then wants to elect her to govern the school. Like,
so that a government official can come and see them.
Yeah, exactly.
This is her worst nightmare.
Given that this is an episode that is all about politics and education, as an educator, can I make a tiny little plug for some new policy coming up?
Go for it.
I love that this, the whole thing about Biden is that, everybody back then made fun of the whole trains thing, which I don't do anymore, because the man is known for having gone home every single night while he was a senator to like have dinner with his family. And that's a long, like, hour and a half between DC and Delaware on the train, at least. So I get it, but like, they didn't do the trains thing in this one because they had to fill it into the school, and the whole Biden time talking about teaching tour. That's what Dr. Biden is really doing right now, which is amazing. Dr. Biden and the Secretary Cardona, the education secretary, are doing this. They're doing fact finding around the US right now, meeting with schools, really figuring out what they need. Dr. Biden's whole platform as First Lady is this education push at a time where education is really struggling to survive. Coronavirus has been very difficult on tuition and on students, and endowments for smaller schools have been drying up. Small colleges have been closing. A lot of single gender institutions are being forced to go co-ed. And I love that this tiny little line in this episode about education, and then, the character of Biden being like, I had a dream I was a real president. Like, this is all happened, right? He is president. Dr. Biden's fixing schools. Like, they somehow still tapped into a very real part of President Biden and Dr. Biden, while still being really facetious about it. And I'm just so grateful that it did come to fruition and that we are getting some progress on education policy, because if we don't get students educated, this possible universal pre-K3 is going to change everything for students. And we're going to see so much growth in our ability to, place really excellent college students and really advance America's potential to get back on that world stage of being leaders and advancers of technology. So as a teacher, even though this episode really makes fun of colleges in some ways and pokes fun at President Biden, I'm glad that it still speaks, and I'm glad that it spoke to issues that were important back then and that are still important, and that we're making progress. God willing, knock on wood. There's my spiel.
This was like well said. And I think that this is like the big sort of Simpsons episode. Like, everyone talks about Simpsons always predicting stuff, and like, I think in the same way with Community doing it here, it's like the reason it's able to be so accurate in its prediction is that it's pulling from stuff that is very real. So it's like, it's not, the ideas that they're touching on here were, maybe not super specific, but spoke to something that we're now seeing the kind of bearing fruit now, and it's good, because 10 years later after it airs, it means that there's like a million gifs that you can use from this episode to make jokes on Twitter. So as everyone did in November, when, how many ever weeks after election day, they finally announced the winner, and we saw all those, I wish I was a regular president memes pop up again. All right, yeah, so I think that's a good positive note to end on there. Thanks again for coming on the show 2 weeks in a row now, Holly. And like you said, we're definitely going to have you back on for at least the Model UN episode. So that's a few weeks away. If we can get you on some other ones in the meantime, we'll definitely do that. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
Oh, Twitter, I'm at Jordan Hollier, as well as on Instagram. So if you want a lot of retweets of community things and pictures of my food in DC, please follow along.
Awesome. And you can follow us at SGC_podcast on Twitter. And there is a Discord. It's probably going to be in the link. The link will be in the description, correct?
Yeah, all that's still, Yep, that'll be in the description, and the Twitter links as well. So if that's easy for you guys, just click on those. And thanks for listening or watching on YouTube. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and 6 seasons in a movie.
6 seasons in a movie.